This is episode 2 of Essential Esports. This is going to be an industry show where we talk about a variety of topics from around esports, especially focusing on people who grew up with the scene. Who better than two of the Call of Duty legends, Hex and Hastr0 from Chicago Huntsmen and Dallas Empire, who are the top 2 teams in CDL currently. So now you guys can officially talk and everyone will hear you.
Yeah,
it's arguable. It's arguable for the exact top 2 teams. I think it's
Are you guys on top in terms of points right now for the league?
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
I think FaZe is number 1 actually.
Are they
FaZe
currently
number 1? Yeah, we're number 3 at the moment. My camera for some reason on your end is like super 240p.
I see that.
Why?
I don't know. Let's blame Discord.
User error.
No.
I mean, I'm just glad it doesn't say Elgato anymore like it did. It was making me nervous at the start of the call.
Listen, I got good cameras.
This might be the first time I look better on camera than Hector does.
So anyway, why we're doing this today is a lot of people don't actually know what the process of creating CDL was. And that isn't a story that has really been told so far, because there was a lot that changed behind the scenes with Call of Duty, and especially with the new commissioner coming in. And then at the very end of last year, there was kind of a mad dash to change the format, to change the schedule and everything like that. So with that in mind, first off, let's discuss what Call of Duty was and before it got into the CDL era, and what were the most important factors for the kind of format and schedule. Because Call of Duty, while Overwatch League went to homestands, Call of Duty was kind of always at the homestand level through MLG. Sort of. With more open qualifier aspects. So
yeah, do you want to start, Hector? You want to take that?
Take it.
All right. I mean, really, it started off, I think people forget about like the first, I don't know, 5 years of competitive like Call of Duty on the console, which is essentially a competitive COD is now just console driven. I mean, we when we got into it at first, I mean, this is 15 years ago, so back then we ran a community. I mean, we basically, the competitive community lived on forums on the internet, and you could just make a name for yourself by having a really good record with your team on like game battles and playing in a few little tournaments there were and doing well. And there wasn't really like a ton of media hype around it. I mean, I would say like the whole thing got built up, from scratch by the community, to be honest, before anybody else popped in. And so those first 5 years of competitive Call of Duty, there's not really a lot of history on it. There aren't a lot of people who tracked all the matches and the tournament standings and who won what prize money, and the stuff that we have now in esports, we didn't really have back then. So a lot of people just kind of forget the history of what was going on, but we really were it was just really grassroots without a lot of big money coming in. And going into the CDL, it's completely different, right? It's like way more structure and there's a lot more investment required. And so the gap between when Hector and I first got started to now is, I mean, it's massive. You can't even compare the two.
Yeah, I mean, sponsors weren't even considering Call of Duty as an esport for a very long time. I remember when one of our first sponsors was SteelSeries, and at the time, SteelSeries was also sponsoring EG at the time, and EG obviously had all the PC whatevers. But on the first quarter that we were there, okay, a tiny little console esport that we built, grassroots, as Mike just said, no sponsors, no money, just us, a passion for the game and a passion for creating content. We were able to build a monstrosity of a thing. Now, it is in console, so people, sort of take a shit on it sometimes, but it's just the thing that changed my life. It's the thing I love most. Call of Duty worldwide forever and ever.
and it was this grassroots flair that kept Call of Duty rolling, because it was always built around these live events in cities. So even as we got sort of into the MLG era, and then when MLG was acquired by Activision Blizzard, so in the last couple of years, it was still that same feel where when I would go to COD events, it would be a huge crowd, open tournaments were a massive part of it, right? Like, what are the core parts in your mind of a COD event, like a Call of Duty event?
Man, I mean, for Call of Duty?
Yes.
Specifically, I mean, the tournaments were always, the tournament kind of open bracket plus either pro bracket or just having the professional teams around, tournament style Call of Duty is just kind of where it's been at for the past 15 years. I mean, it's open bracket tournaments, discovering new players from around the world. I mean, that's really where it's been, and I don't think we've really strayed away from that. I think we just have something new that's on the table, and it's just the very beginning. I mean, we already took the format, like you said, when we came into the league, we kind of pivoted the way the matches work and the way the scheduling works and the format of the league into a tournament style format, and I think we'll continue to get better there. But I mean, Hector will tell you, we came in and we're like, we need this to be climactic.
Oh, we'll get
like
there. Don't
yeah,
worry,
like
we'll get there.
we saw Minnesota, happen, and it was like, all right, well, there's no, it didn't feel the same, right? When we went to Minnesota, when you just had scheduled matches, it didn't feel the same. There wasn't that hype and energy wasn't there, and so we came out of Minnesota and we're like, this has to change. And thank God, like we have really great people at Activision Blizzard Esports and the CDL specifically that were willing to kind of bend and shape this thing a little bit more and turn it into something that was just a little bit better than what we had in Minnesota. And so I think we're going to be able to continue to make modifications to what we're doing in CDL. It's going to be great.
Yeah, and the turnaround, and I want to give huge props to the CDL for this, Johan and the team, because when Hastr and I said this would work better, right? If we do it like this, it's a little bit weird. If we do it the way that we've been doing it, if we continue to have this sort of tournament structure on the weekends that sort of lead to a culmination, moment, then that's good. Within 48 hours, Mike, was it, that we're like, all right, this is how we're doing it. And I'm talking about pages on pages on pages of hard work from them to turn it around that quickly for us to get it, jump started. So it to me, it was, I did not expect that at all. And believe me, at all. I've been in Call of Duty from its inception. So it's Call of Duty 2, right? 2005. And throughout the years, we never really had the support, one, from the developer, or any of the studios, and then all of a sudden we call it month number 3 of this new thing, and we're getting what we need in 48 hours, and again, it's a testament to their commitment to this thing. So super happy about that.
So when we look at Call of Duty, it has always been more of an interactive event with open qualifiers and participation from players, and so when fans go to a Call of Duty event, they're expecting not only to be able to see their big teams and potentially even play against them, depending on how that event is structured, but also to be able to play the game themselves and compete while they're there. So it's more similar to like the fighting game community and other like sort of grassroots tournament events, would you say?
Yeah. I mean, man, the best events that I've ever been to in terms of just the events that I had the most fun at, and I felt that energy of a community, were Major League Gaming events where, Call of Duty was part of something bigger, actually. When you had StarCraft, I think the renaissance of, North American esports was really in the MLG days, when you had StarCraft 2, League of Legends, Call of Duty, Halo, and like Smash, and any variety of those games thrown together into a live event, because you would have like 3,000 people at the StarCraft stage watching it. You'd have 1,000 people at the Call of Duty stage. You'd have 1,000 people watching Smash everywhere. You'd have tons of people watching Halo, a couple thousand people. And then these crowds were just erupting, in these massive convention centers left and right, like for different plays that were happening. And so everybody from one game would be like, oh, what's happening over there at Call of Duty? Everybody's going nuts. And so, COD was part of something bigger back then, that really, I think, just kind of validated it as one of the, I wouldn't say a tier 1 esport, but as a big esport, because everybody from those big PC esports saw actually how substantial a console game could be with COD.
Tier 1 in our hearts, absolutely. But those were the golden days of esports, in my opinion. The ability to be able to have the option to go watch a Halo team play, one of your favorite, or if as a fan, you get to go see Pistola playing over here, and then you go over here, and then you go to, see Scump or Nate Shot or whoever. And then you have, the Cloud9 with high at the beginning, all the way on the left side, and one caster would be like, "Are you gonna let the Call of Duty team be loud? The Call of Duty crowd be louder?" No, and then everybody got into this, like, it was amazing. Free hot pockets,
Free Dr. Pepper and deodorant.
Dr. Pepper and Doritos.
Speed stick,
Deodorant,
classically
please.
at MLG.
It was Old Spice. Old Spice.
It was Old Spice. Look, all I gotta say is that wasn't a sponsor. I bought all that for the crowd. I couldn't take it anymore. It was me.
Perfect sponsor.
Yeah, I was casting at some of those old MLG events, so they were a really good time, and it did feel much more like a community effort because it wasn't just, obviously StarCraft as well had open qualifiers into the tournament a lot of the time, and it was right at the start of League of Legends, and then even into the first season of LCS. They would occasionally run the LCS matches at the MLG, which I really miss. How they would like fly the players out to these events and have them in a different city. It was really fun, and I think it added a different flair at the time, and it's something that I miss. But I think that a lot of this energy, fortunately, has been captured because as we reminisce on these events, so much of that was lost, especially in the franchise era of esports. And now, obviously, Overwatch League and CDL and Activision Blizzard in general is trying to do more of these local events, but Overwatch League is a very different experience than this, whereas COD is kind of more or less the same. We're going to get into how it is different. So when you came into CDL, we will talk about your transition from OpTic in a bit, Hector. We'll circle back to that, to the Chicago Huntsmen. But when you guys were coming into CDL, so post you being with the Huntsmen, what was their proposal initially like for how Call of Duty should be run?
As far as what?
As far as the format, as the structure, yes.
Well, I mean, there were several iterations of what it could have been and what it could have looked like. One of them was, have a homestand with 3 visiting teams instead of like the entirety of it. But bottom line is that we all sat in a room together. Hastro made a very, very good point. I obviously, this is the same point as me, which is like, we need to give them what they've experienced, the fans, what they've experienced for the last 10 years. There's no need to change culture that much in order to, we need to fit this into the culture instead of the culture fit into this new format of whatever. And for me, I think that was the way that it should always be, right? I mean, if you think about it now, if Overwatch was able to have the same sort of tournament structure on the weekends, think about that. Like, it'd be insane to be, as a fan, to be able to see every single one of the teams and see somebody make a crazy bracket run. I mean, I think that is the way that you create the storylines that you need in order for something to continue to push itself forward.
Some of us push for that, Hector. You guys were the successful ones. Let's put it that way.
It's kind of getting tested out now. There is a tournament format
right.
now.
But
it just popped up. But yeah.
So what about CDL was the first thing that you wanted to change based off of their initial proposal? Because I know the players were also very instrumental, and something that I really admire Call of Duty players for, period, is how they don't put up with any bullshit, and they will just call people out, and they know their value. I actually think they know their value. This is going to sound weird. I think COD players know their value better than any other group of players in esports. Like, a lot of them have been around a long time. They're not gonna take shit pay. They're going to just fuck people up if they do something wrong publicly and call them out on it. They actually have like an incredibly high standard of professionalism that they hold other people to, which I think is amazing from them. I wish other players would do this. And I know that one of the initial complaints from the players was that they were like, I don't want to fly to London to play one match and then fly home. They're like, this is ridiculous. Because they were trying to, as I understand it, the initial plan was to sort of push everything, like every team just kind of plays at every stop, at every CDL stop that is hosted. And there isn't any kind of, like you were saying, tournament on the day. It's just a more normal ongoing league, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? One thing that you'll learn about Call of Duty scene as a whole, not just, not Call of Duty players, and that is it. We've nurtured this thing from the beginning. Hastr and I and other people as well have taken this sort of big brother approach where, fair is fair. And, when players are late, whether it's public or not, they get reprimanded, right? I don't make a big deal out of certain situations like that on public forums ever. But they do know their worth, but they only know their worth because we've sort of nurtured this culture that everybody's voice matters in something that we're all building together. From what I know, and I've known Hastr for like 12, 13 years, like we've always taken the same approach where, like, yeah, somebody has to do the boring work, us, but we're teammates, right? We're teammates. We're in this thing together, and we hold people accountable, and we don't massage their egos, and we don't say your farts smell like roses and you pee rainbows, right? We hold them accountable for what they do, good and bad. But when we demand that from them, we also have to put that same sort of pressure on ourselves to make sure that we stand up for them when they need to, and to put them in their place when they need to, because they do get out of pocket sometimes where they need to be taken, aside and be told, that that's not the way to approach certain things. But when we all decided to go into this thing, we said from the beginning, this isn't going to be a one-way street. This isn't going to be, hello, we're Activision Blizzard, this is the way things work, period, and a story, bye. No, this is a partnership, right, amongst three very important pillars that's going to make this thing work. Right? It's going to be you, Activision. It's going to be us, the organizations. It's going to be the players. And if we're all not on the same page, we're never going to get anywhere. And we're getting there, surely, slowly but surely, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, we're having good meetings right now around Call of Duty League and getting some of the data and seeing some, what we're doing and seeing what's working and what's not. And honestly, man, I mean, I think a lot of people don't really understand how well the CDL is actually doing. I mean,
it's doing very well.
It's doing phenomenally well for where we are, and starting our broadcast partnership with YouTube and getting that locked in at the kind of the very last moment. And this is just the very beginning, man. And it's the same way for Owl too. Owl's stumbled a little bit in certain ways, but man, everybody's got to realize that that's also in its infancy. I mean, it could be 5 years before Overwatch as an IP or the Overwatch League actually realizes, some of its real potential. I mean, it could be years, but hopefully it doesn't take that long. Hopefully we can figure it out before then. But CDL is quite healthy, actually. And, I'm very, very optimistic about things that we can do in the near term to actually make it a lot better. I feel like we've got a really good product already. COVID really put a hamper on it. I actually think you would see really great growth and engagement this year, much faster if we were able to have our live events and with Call of Duty and turning it into that tournament kind of grind format on the weekend and putting on a show. It would have been a lot of fun this year. But CDL's healthy, man, super healthy.
If in 2006 I would have told you, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna dedicate my life to this Call of Duty team, you would have been like, Call of Duty? No, you need to be in StarCraft or Halo or all these other popular ones. Right? It took 10 plus years to get to the level that we're at right now. As an organization, I'm talking about, where what was. And I think that we're going through that right now. Like, anybody that tries to shit on anything that anyone's building right now isn't thinking long term the way that we are. Right? We're not looking at this as like, okay, next year. No, in 5 years, in 7 years, in 10 years, this is what it's going to look like. And you're either going to be a part of that, and you're either going to be along for that journey, or very publicly on YouTube and Twitter and any other social media platform that lives forever, your thoughts, okay, your inability to think forward is going to be there. It's going to be chiseled in there on the internet, right? So this isn't something that's going to happen overnight. I was never under any illusion. I'm super, super happy at how good the CDL is doing right now. I didn't expect it to be this this good this soon. I didn't expect to sell out our homestand like on year one, but we did. We had to extend it. We were about to open up more.
It's insane how many tickets they sold. Like, Hector, they had 7,000 tickets per day sold in Chicago, something like that.
Something like that. I think, yeah. So 7,000 total tickets, but then we were about to open it up to do even more. Right? We're gonna open up more not GA, let's say the premium and then VIP. So like we were about to do something crazy, right? Something that we just didn't get a chance to because of a sickness.
But even so, I mean, the viewership continues to go up in spite of the difficulties that you've had. So, and you've figured out a way to operate these tournaments remotely, which obviously is very difficult from a technical perspective. what were you talked, I want to go back and say, you guys spoke about how you think that this has been a good growth year for CDL and for COD in general. What about CDL do you think is causing the COD viewership to grow compared to when it was operated, say, last year by MLG?
It's weird. We just saw some data, and I won't get into specifics, but yeah, a lot of the data suggested that our viewership is going up versus last year. We had a comparison to last year, and there were some aspects that were different. We're up on some things and down on some things, but up on most things. And I think the difference is just that it's just new, so there's going to be interest from past Call of Duty esports fans that might not have watched maybe in the past couple of years, that get kind of sucked back into it because it's new and they want to just observe it and check it out. But there's just a lot of other variables too. Just there's more marketing for the league than there was for CWL and past Call of Duty esports events. And again, like another example of me saying it's just getting started, like we haven't even really, I don't think we've really leveraged the game that much at all. Overwatch too, is another example. I mean, imagine if in the next Call of Duty title, right, when you log into the game, you go download the game for the first time, and you are about to play for your first games, and you load up the game, and it says, when you're creating your profile in the next Call of Duty, pick your favorite CDL team, and then they start, creating content for our teams in the game and advertising the league in the game. I mean, League of Legends is benefiting from almost 10 straight years of advertising esports in the League of Legends game client.
Yeah.
The biggest difference in esports that are successful and the ones that aren't successful, in my opinion, majorly successful, are the ones who are constantly promoting esports to their casual player base. And with Overwatch and Call of Duty, we haven't even started that yet.
And I can tell you from being in Korea for 5 years for League of Legends that there's obviously they localize the clients and they do different things, but in Korea, if you log into League of Legends, it is only esports things that you see. Like in Korea, because esports is so established there, they understand that that's just what the audience wants to see. So in the US, it might be like different kinds of features or more casual features, but in Korea, it's just 100% esports basically.
Yeah, here's the thing, man. Somebody clip this and put it on the internet. If you're a game developer and you're listening, put esports in your game. Oh, sorry. Is it too loud?
A little loud. But here's the other thing that could be
I just
really...
want to get it across there, Monty. Hold on.
Yeah, go.
Yeah.
If you're a game developer or publisher, and you want your game to be successful in esports, advertise it in the fucking game. It's that simple. Just put it on the main menu.
We've been fighting that, right? We've obviously that we've been from the beginning. That was part of one of the conditions on this thing too, right? We said, all right, again, this is a partnership. You need to be as supportive of this as we are going to be supportive of this thing. The amount of money committed to this thing, the amount of hours, man hours worked on this thing, and women hours worked on this thing. Like this isn't something that you just brush off and you just let it go and watch it grow. No, you got to water this thing, and you have to bring your own pail and dump that water in yourself. And that's where the league is working towards as well, right? From what we're told, they're working on that as well. Because if you think about it, if you look at the Call of Duty fan base, right? If you look at Call of Duty as a whole, the fan base, everything that we've created as Call of Duty for the last 10 years, it's massive, right? If we are able to get the support that we need to promote the game the way that it should be promoted, the way that Riot obviously promotes their game, our possibilities are endless, right? It's a beautiful game. It's a fun game.
Yeah, I mean that's just the question, right? Like, Monty, I'm gonna ask you. Like, you for years you were part of the League of Legends community in a big way. You saw how much they advertise every time you load up the game client. Like you said, in Korea, it was in your face. In North America, it kind of took a little bit of time for them to advertise the LCS more, but certainly for at least the past 5 years, they've done that, right? So imagine that when you load up Call of Duty with the size of its player base and the MAUs that they get in COD, especially in North America, where you're talking about prime demographics, the prime target audience that advertisers and sponsors want to get to. That's what our business is basically predicated around, right? is getting the viewership of an audience that advertisers and marketers want to reach. And imagine if Call of Duty turned that billboard on in the game for CDL when they do. Hopefully they do. I can't really talk too much about it because, to be honest, I don't really know exactly what the developers have planned for us. But just imagine that, right?
Yeah.
Of CDL broadcasts and streams being pumped right there when you load up the game. Pick your favorite team. Here's our shop. Here's our team shop. Buy gear and different skins and premium skins and so on for these teams. And we have to do our part. Hector and I. Hector certainly done a lot of that, engaging with his community over the years. But we have our part to do, and so do the devs and the publishers and advertising the leagues. And I think they'll help us along the way.
I think too that one of the most interesting features of this, and what I would do if I think it's hard because there are multiple developers working on Call of Duty, obviously. So sometimes it could be, I imagine, difficult to sort of coordinate all these tasks across multiple developers. But I think that one of the things that I wish that both CDL and OWL would do is to actually use the fact that the teams are geolocated. So if I was them, what I would be doing is putting the actual team information. So if you are the Dallas Empire and you're playing from an IP in Texas, I would be showing you Dallas Empire shit as soon as you log in. Just like Dallas Fuel or whatever, if you're in the Dallas area, right? And I think that's a big missed opportunity to be like, hey, you person who is logging in, we know where you are. Here's actual your local team, support them.
Yeah, it's basically what we're saying. I don't even know if the developers have the ability in Call of Duty, for example, to like geolocate or geotarget.
I mean, they have IPs, so they must.
Yeah, I mean, sure, they have the IPs, but I don't know what it takes, right? Like, what
Sure.
level of investment does that take to build in that technology? I couldn't tell you.
And the other thing that I really like about what Overwatch League is doing now, where they would have done, is offering the sprays. If you go to the homestands, like custom sprays. But when I was talking with Overwatch League, I said push this a step further. Why? And especially this works even better for COD because you guys actually have tournaments there. The more homestands you go to, it can upgrade your spray like a CSGO sticker from like regular to like foil, gold, foil, etc. So it rewards multiple attendance, or you give unique items to people in game depending on their placements at open COD tournaments, right? So that there's actually something that you're in game that you're winning that you can show off from participating, even if you're not there necessarily to watch the esport, you're just there to compete yourself, right? But even drawing more people to these events will eventually turn some of these people into actual fans of the esport. Yeah.
There are lots of mechanics that developers and game publishers could put into their games that would allow esports to grow tremendously. So that's what I'm investing in, right? I know that that's not going to happen right away. I know those features aren't going to get built into the games right away. But, I'm hoping that as a partner, an investor into these leagues, I can have an influence on how the game publishers and developers create features and advertising for their esports leagues. Yeah. And so I'm investing in the fact that I think eventually Activision Blizzard will tie both Call of Duty League and Overwatch League and any other leagues that they have for their future IPs and games. And, they'll tie the esports into their games. And that's important. That's what I'm investing into.
Yeah. I think that it could this come to fruition a little bit better? Yeah. I mean, if we would have been preparing for 3 years leading into this thing, if 3 years ago somebody would have said, all right, guys, this is what it's going to take to do this. And then we could have started having those conversations back then. And we sort of geared it up to get to where we're at. We would have been in a much better place. Right. But this sort of came about one year. They're like, all right, next year we're going to franchising. Okay. And then boom, it happens. So now we're sort of, 2 years behind or 1 year behind of what it could look like, will look like, hopefully, as we continue to grow this thing. But for now, it's just put your head down, create the content, compete, and that's that.
Let's talk about the move over to YouTube, because I think this is probably very beneficial for Call of Duty, considering that COD has always had an enormous presence in terms of YouTube. This is how you built OpTic, for example. This is how Nadeshot got super famous and popular within the community. Was that something that you guys were excited about? And do you think that that's actually helped with the esports, like live viewership for COD?
Well, yes, and no. Obviously, you can't ignore the fact that the live community on Twitch is massive, but there's a lot of misconception that says that that YouTube doesn't have the same, if not better, numbers when it comes to live programming. Call of Duty is in the DNA of gaming entertainment on YouTube.
Right.
YouTube has gained a lot from the early Call of Duty community. If you look at all the major, I would say conservatively, 75% of all of the major, PewDiePies of the world started in Call of Duty. You know what I mean? And they did, right? It was Call of Duty, then Machinima, that blew it up, and then we continued to do the thing for years on end, every single year. And before, where we were, our downfall is the fact that we get a brand new game every single year. That was also our fuel, because every single year we got to make the same videos that we've been making for 5 years, but just on a different map with a different weapon in the same game, in the same universe, if anything, to continue to create the content. Since it's been in its DNA since its inception, I think that it's for the long run. I mean, if you look at the numbers now, right? Like if you look at old school matches, they didn't get as many views as they get now, right? Like we're talking about 1 million views per tournament now, not including the live or including the live viewership as it goes along. But I think it fits. It's a perfect fit. Obviously VOD on YouTube is reigns supreme, and eventually at some point, I think that live on YouTube is gonna be the it.
I was gonna say, yeah, I think Minecraft helped a little bit secondary to Call of Duty too. I mean, like seriously, there were a couple of years where Call of Duty content, I mean, the gaming content on YouTube was dominated by Call of Duty for a couple of years.
Yep.
I mean, totally dominated. And it was, if you looked at gaming content on YouTube, I bet you it was kind of in the top 3 most generated content from a game per like IP, probably for a decade. Wouldn't you say? I mean, it's been just a staple on YouTube. So the transition to YouTube has been solid. Look, I think we're in partnership with Google, and we have a media rights deal with Google essentially, and they're not slouches when it comes to engineering product, online. And so I think again, it's another example of how it's so early. Like YouTube's live streaming product is early, still, and it's what's going to be its bigger overall life cycle. I mean, I think they're going to have new streaming technology coming about. There are going to be new ways that we can interact with our communities on YouTube. So overall, we're really excited about what we have with that deal and where it can go. I mean, it's just the very, very beginning, and there are probably ways that we can integrate with Google and YouTube, in a 3-way kind of between the league, the publisher, developer, and Google YouTube. So I'm excited about what we can create.
Yeah, I mean, if you compare Twitch's VOD and compare that to YouTube's live,
sure,
like it's lopsided, right? Like it's not even a thing. And again, it's just a testament to Google being Google, and whatever, the humble startup that they are. But when it goes down the line, just know that, I mean, if you focus on the fact that YouTube's discoverability sucks for live programming, just imagine what is going to, and they're not just going to sit there and be like, yeah, we're going to suck forever. This is no, right? Like, this is what it is. They're daily. They're working on it daily. I bet you that soon enough, the discoverability, the way that they present live programming, is going to be easier to find and easier to consume. So once that happens again, pack your bags.
Obviously, I think it's particularly good for COD, given the legacy of the game on YouTube, and it's a pretty natural fit, I think, for the audience. What effect did Call of Duty starting to be released on PC have on the audience, if any? Because anecdotally, I had never played a Call of Duty game until it came out on PC, and now I play them. So it's certainly driven interest for me, for sure.
Yeah, the amount of focus that, I don't know if it was a developer or what, like they never took care of the PC community. I mean, the pro mod community from Call of Duty 4 was it, right, for competitive, and they didn't take care of that community, right? They said, you know what, we're just gonna, I don't know if it was laziness, I don't know if it, look, these are Bobby Kodak's questions, right? Him and his business partners as to why. But when you look at what we have been able to do, again, with no support, right? Just two dudes that like Call of Duty. Hastr as a player, me as a YouTuber, and the rest of the community. What we've been able to do by ourselves so far has been crazy. If you look from a social media perspective, if you look at our teams or the teams that have been created out of Call of Duty, they rival the biggest teams in the biggest esport out there, right? When it comes to viewership, when it comes to t-shirt sales, you know what I mean? Like that's what we've been able to do now. And now that we have that, right? We did that just with one hand. Now that we have the Activision hand that's going to pair up with what we've been doing, again, this isn't something that's going to happen overnight, but now we are fighting a different fight with different tools.
Yeah, it's getting interesting, and we're just getting started. So that's why I think a lot of people, maybe even the chat, they just need to understand, like, when you're looking, and this isn't just about Call of Duty or Overwatch and things that we're invested into. I mean, it goes for other games too, man. It's like there are other games out there that are just trying to do their thing in esports, and they get like met with a lot of disrespect and criticism. But it's just, look, let every community try to do its thing. I try not to be as much of a hater as I am somebody that can boost everyone up these days. Hopefully that's who I've become.
I've never thought you were a hater, Hastro. That's definitely not your character.
Not really a hater, but now I just want to see everybody be successful, and
especially you who has a vested financial interest in being successful.
Well, I was a competitor, for many years. So I was, it's hard to do that competition, try to be the best out, and to root for your rivals. But now, it's like I want to see everything grow, everything get successful, everybody make money, everybody have fun. So yeah, I think we're headed in a direction with COD where you can't really give it too much criticism in its early stage. It's just started.
What are the challenges that you guys have with the game changing so frequently and changing so dramatically? Because the difference between, Black Ops 4 and Infinite Warfare was pretty intense. And also now you're changing even the number of players that are on a team in a given game. So how do you guys deal with those kind of shifts every year? And do you think that that's good for COD as an esport?
It depends on the year, right?
Obviously, that's always the answer in this game.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate as that is. That's just something that I'll never understand, right? I'll never understand why, 3 different developers working for the same parent company can't be sat in the same room and say, "This is how we're going to do esports, and this is how we're going to do, lobbies," right? It is mind blowing to me. And then on the PC side, though, like I know that I play on PC. Okay, I just used one of these.
Sure.
But the beauty of it, right? Like it is a different. I play a different game than what Scump plays, right? And Scump won't play this. He doesn't play the full game to his full beauty because he plays on a PlayStation. If at some point, they're able to figure out how to make the input and everything that's needed for players to use, the right tools and experience the full game, 120 FOV, the 240, like the beauty, it's a different game. And it saddens me that they don't get to enjoy it the way that I enjoy it.
We talked about this in our, owners meeting recently. We were all together the last time we were all together. I hope I don't cross the line right here, but I'm going to talk about it.
That's why I didn't say it, but go ahead, man. Say it.
Okay, we're going to talk about it. I hope I don't cross the line.
You're fine.
If I do, I'm sorry. But it's whoever is going to reprimand me. But basically, like, I was having a conversation with a gentleman named Byron who, is responsible for a lot of the management of the development of Call of Duty games for Activision Blizzard. And, we were talking as a group, and we were wondering, is this viable for the Call of Duty League to bring in PC players at some point to compete with the console players? And so you could potentially mix and match, your roster could be a dude playing with a mouse and keyboard, and you could have Scumpy on the sticks right next to him as teammates, and what's the viability of that? And so we were talking about how we work through that. And so, they were asking us questions about it. And I was like, well, look, you guys have all the data, the data doesn't lie. If you guys can actually look at the data and get it to where if you can go look in like ranked lobbies, when you get those, or public lobbies of players playing on PC, what their kill death ratios versus, console players, what the average kill death ratios are, or, some kind of metric to measure their success as players. And then if you can get that as close to 50% as possible, once you get it to like, around 50 to 51%, where, they're similar sorts of data for both PC players and console players, then yeah, you could potentially have a game where, the PC players can play alongside the console players and it's all fair game, if you can create a fair playing field for both PC players and console players to come out. And so I think that's something that we're also looking at for the future of CDL and Call of Duty Esports. So maybe we all switch to play the game on the PC as a platform, which would enable us to have better mod tools, to have better broadcast experience, more technology built into the game for esports, where the console players just plug their controller in, and then, like Hector said, they get the full, range of the game and its glory on the PC and performance. So
60,
hopefully that works out one day.
60 frames per second, my boys play on.
That's tragic. In the modern world, that's incredibly tragic.
It looks like my camera now.
How do you balance like the aim assist versus like mouse and keyboard though? Because wouldn't that be kind of an ongoing battle? Because then you're trying to like balance the console side versus the PC side, and tweaks to that would actually make it so that teams would get better or worse depending on how many console versus PC players were on their teams during like a given season, right?
Yeah, but that's why they have to do it in development. You have to get it to a place where you don't have to tweak it at all afterward. Before you could even institute that into our league, you would have to make sure it's at a place where you never have to change it again, essentially, at least for that season.
Yeah. So I played a game on PC. Never played a PC game in my life, right? Well, besides Minecraft, I was Minecraft, right? Everyone loved Minecraft. I played Battalion 1944, I think it was called, right?
You were posting clips. You were posting clips like you were killing people in that game.
Listen, I made a montage, okay? I made a montage.
I missed that one.
I'll tell you, I will tell you what. After a month of playing on PC or keyboard and mouse, it's way easier to point with just that. You know what I mean? Than this. I use all this on my left hand. On this, I only use 3 fingers. It's just it's unfair. There's a PC Master Race. It's like, no, you just have easier tools.
Yeah, and also I think what's interesting is that in theory, I mean, obviously many of these pro players that have been playing this game professionally for many years are not going to switch off the controller because the relearning process would be too severe. But I do think that the switch to PC would make it potentially viable for more players, like you're saying, to enter the league if it could somehow be balanced in that way. I still think that obviously the core community still has to be that console community because first off, it's unique to Call of Duty. And second off, North America is a console market. The more people play console games on the North American continent. So if you are going to create a predominantly North American league, it makes way more sense for you to have that game on console as well. Yeah,
that's why we're not sweating it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same.
We're not sweating the PC players coming over to play, but I would like to see it happen.
Yeah, same. When you look at Symphony play alongside Scump in Warzone, you truly see like the possibilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're even in kills. That to me like says, there can and will be a world in which somebody's just more comfortable in one of those things.
Yeah, Fortnite had it pretty close at one point. So I wouldn't say close. I don't know. I'm not a Fortnite.
No, aim assist on Fortnite is way different. It has to be strong because they're not just it's an audience that just encompasses everything, right? And there's like younger kids, and then there's older kids that play it that need the extra help, right? Yeah. But again, it's a different universe with different gravities, if that makes any sense when it comes to the sticky aim.
What as we move forward into COD, this is one issue that you brought up that you'd like to see. But we've talked about creating more in-game assets, driving people to the product. Talked about maybe incorporating some of these PC players. What other changes do you think, or what have you learned so far this year from CDL that you'd really like to see implemented heading into potentially the second season next year?
It's a tough one.
It's a tough one because we were cut short, right? I think we only had 4 events.
Right. It's hard because you haven't had those in-person events that are so key.
Yeah, man.
I know. I got one thing. Trophies.
Yeah.
And medals for the players. Dude, why is that not a thing? It's so cheap. It's literally, I mean, it's insanely inexpensive to provide a trophy and then medals to all of the players that they can take home and have some kind of commemoration, of their win.
The accomplishment, yeah.
Like, dude, what the hell are we doing in esports? Like, every event has to have a trophy, and every event should have medals for the players. The org keeps the trophy, the players keep the medals. How have we not learned this? Anyway, that's what we need to be doing. That's one thing I'd like to see get done.
Our trophy was gonna be dope. That's why I'm like, you guys better win because I'm not making this thing for somebody else. It used to sit in the hex quarters.
Yeah, that's what I like about the CDL. I mean, it's like way we have it set up. I mean, there could be kind of a different little trophy for every event, just between the teams.
That's your tower for Chicago. The Eiffel Tower for Paris. We could have done something like sick.
Yeah, we were talking about what we were going to do for our trophy here in Texas. There's a lot there. So yeah, I mean, we'll save those for the future.
So you guys are responsible for actually creating the trophies. How much leeway do you have when you're hosting like an event in your city to make things different or add your own kind of unique spin onto it?
I think we're the sole controllers in situations like that. I think because
that's awesome.
I mean, we obviously check with our partners because that's what good partners do. But for the most part, it was have at it. You want a circus? Go ahead.
Oh man, I can tell you guys plenty of stories about Hector was just getting to his event. Sucks, man. I really, honestly, man, I'm heartbroken that you didn't get to run your event. Like, because now, as we've been longtime rivals competing against each other in the game, but we're also business partners now in the sense that we both invested into this business together. So now we're actually tied together as business partners, as owners in this league. Okay. Let me get that straight. So you guys know that Hector and I will be on the same page in a lot of ways, even though we're still going to try and have our teams, beat each other. Yeah, I mean, I just kind of forgot what I was about to talk about. Hector, remind me, because
you're what leeway you have at local events. Like what are you guys going to do that's special for your own events?
Hector didn't get to run his event, but I ran one. I ran 2 now in Dallas, but my first one in April of last year when we had the Overwatch League homestand, you were there, right?
Yeah, of course.
Honey? Yeah. So you saw the energy in
really
that crowd.
Fun. Yeah, it was great.
I mean, and you've been to tons of esports events. How loud was that crowd? I mean,
it was a really fun event.
Crowd, that I've ever seen. I mean, they were louder than most CS crowds, and there's a lot there at the live event level. And so I had maybe about a month and a half lead up where I created our run of show with Corey Dunn from he runs Esports Stadium, but he also is a great freelancer that used to run a lot of the MLG
Esports legend behind the scenes.
Legend, for sure.
Very good guy.
Yeah, great guy. Amazing hard worker. But I had the opportunity to. I basically was the creative behind a lot of what happened at that homestand. Personally, was the one who was the last stop, right? Who made the decisions. But like our president and COO Jeff Moore, amazing guy. He was the executor. He executed the whole thing, and I would never have been able to do it without my team of people. Working for on our staff, and Jeff executing. But creatively, I said, I want pyrotechnics. I want fire, right? They made sure fire was there, right? I said, I want, bigger screens. We chopped out, smaller screens, and they got me bigger screens, whenever I wanted something done, it got done. And Hector, just to reiterate what Hector said, we make those decisions. If it's on us, we take that responsibility, if it sucks or if it's great.
When it comes to the actual competitive gameplay, what do you think are the best elements for Call of Duty? Like, because you said you wish that they had been able to standardize the game in some way, or the developers could actually talk to each other. Which game modes do you think are like core to that experience? And do you have a preference of the 4 versus 5 player aspect of it? Do you have a preference for the kind of potential setting that it's in? Because we've gone from like the future to World War II to the present in the last several years. What do you think from a competitive perspective is the best thing for COD?
I will say this. We're doing 5v5 because Hastr once said that we should.
No, don't blame it on me.
Yeah.
Don't blame it on me.
Yeah, that's all him. I once said, yo, there should definitely be one sniper out there. And you're like, no. Then he has his like incredible run in Counter-Strike, comes back, he's like, yep, 5v5 is the way to do this. And then everybody listened, and then now we're here, 5v5. It's Hastr's fault. You heard it here first. It's Hastr's fault.
I was somewhat responsible, but the players hate it because here's the deal. It's mostly the players who are sucking this year who hate on it, but a lot of them do want to try and go back to 4v4. But I don't know. I thought 5v5 was just going to be better for the overall health of the league and entertainment factor. As a player, personally, when you're watching 4 versus 4 search and destroy, it's not. I think 5 versus 5 search and destroy is lit. Like, I mean, it gives players the ability to have crazy clutches. Just adding that one extra player in makes the game, in my opinion, more exciting to watch. So anyway, I might be on an island by myself in that.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. Trust me. Look. I like 5v5 a lot, right? Obviously, but we grew up in 4v4, so I can fight both sides of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty impartial to it. I'd be happy to pay one less player. Trust me.
Yeah. I was gonna say I'm glad that I have one extra teammate that I get to hang out with, but yeah, no, let's
See, this is how
he's just throwing you under the bus, left, right, and center.
No. I was literally about to say like, oh, at least we have like one more person to make funny content with. But yeah.
Well, I mean, it's different, having 5 players. So we'll see where it goes.
In terms of the setting, do you think that matters, or do you think that refreshing the setting or changing the sort of time period that it's in is actually part of the appeal to kind of draw people back into the game? Because there's 2 arguments, right? With the argument for having a new game every year is like, oh, well, we're going to sell $1 billion in games. Obviously, Activision's loving that shit. And
Definitely.
then, and also because it in a way resets everything. So players who are a little bit burned out, they come back, maybe they watch more esports, but you have these wild swings in competitiveness that make it very difficult for the players to kind of stay on top of the game with it changing so frequently.
Yeah, I can fight both sides on this one too, right? On the one hand, I always said that if there was a large enough community in Call of Duty 4, that I would play Call of Duty 4 S&D matches for the rest of my life. That's just my thing. That I love doing that. But if that was the case, then why do I enjoy playing Warzone so much? Why do I enjoy playing S&D in Modern Warfare as much as I do? Right? So I can fight both sides. So don't ask me, because I'd like both.
So you're okay. The players are okay with this. The wild shifts in the meta.
I don't
that
think
happens.
so.
I mean,
no, I don't.
Most
think the players
pro players are infuriated by things like that.
Yeah, but look, they play at a level that I'll never know, a level that you'll never know. It's just
only Hastr will know.
I'll tell you this: all these Call of Duty pros who have been around for more than 5 years, they wouldn't have been around if they were playing the same game like that they were playing 5 years ago. They wouldn't survive. Burnout is a thing. The guys that play the same game repetitively. Counter-Strike is like, I don't know, maybe the shining, refute to what I'm about to say. But, I think players get burnt out on games more times than not after a couple of years of playing it, right? So if the players, I don't know, if the players were playing the same game competitively that they were playing 5 years ago, I don't think you'd see a bunch of them around anymore.
The argument though is why can't they just make new maps and add new weapons to the same?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's obvious though that the answer to that, and we all know that, is they're making, like what Chris said, they're making $1 billion a year. They're pulling in insane money every single year, right? Like off of launching a new title out. So I don't blame them at all. That's what I would be doing too. I mean,
same.
But
I'd be looking
everybody in the world. Everyone in the world.
6 months,
There is literally not one person in the world that wouldn't be doing what they're doing. Not one person in the world.
Don't you think that is somewhat of an outmoded model, though, that as we move into games as a service, because League of Legends has been the biggest game in the world for a long time right now, free to play, and they monetize off of microtransactions. We've seen Fortnite be very successful, and now Apex with battle passes and this kind of content. Don't you think there's a world where Call of Duty just kind of eventually becomes like this continuous title that's constantly in development? Because sure, if you can continue to get away with selling a $60 title every year, you might want to do that. But at the same time, it does disrupt the competitive experience. And instead of iterating on it over time constantly, you're just dealing with a new big box every single year. Do you think that's the future of COD, or do you think it would be smarter for them to try and move in a different direction?
I think, honestly, man, it's the numbers are going to dictate that, right? Like that's a business move,
Sure, yeah.
It's not a creative move at all. It's just a complete, hardline numbers business move for Activision Blizzard. I mean, they're going to look at the data, and when they see that their interest in users purchasing $60 box units on game release night are dwindling down and down and down, and they see that go down, which I think they will. Those numbers will go down because people probably ultimately eventually expect their games to be free. So, they'll make that decision when it comes, for them, when they look at the data. I think that's all data driven. And there's nothing that Hector or I can say about that.
Sure, yeah.
We'll see where it goes. But
I'm just asking you, I'm not asking you to make a business decision. I'm asking you to tell me if you think that would be better for the competitive esports side of the game.
Yeah. I mean, I think movement to free to play is always going to help with numbers, and that's what we want. We want more eyeballs watching our league. So,
and we also want more players out there meeting or not meeting their goals, right? Like we don't know. Like think about the amount of players that have the natural God-given ability to be a top 1% that have never been given the opportunity because the game has just not been in their hands.
Yeah, and I think that's the interesting thing too, is like if you could somehow merge the developers, or just have somebody, instead of concentrating on this sort of large scale experience, because we've also seen that the elimination of certain single player aspects of Call of Duty in the last couple of years, right? And then also the inclusion of these BR games like Blackout, and then now with the new Modern Warfare. So it seems like they're moving more towards a purely competitive model anyway. So, and also there's this other aspect where what we know about Overwatch 2 is that they're introducing PvE content into that game. And if we look at what Hearthstone has done, which is monetize PvE experience, so like sell you the single player experience while still making the competitive experience free, it seems like there could be a transition here where the developers we might take one of the developers and say, okay, you're going to make the PvE content. And we take one of the developers and we say, you're going to make the Battle Royale content. And we take one of them and we say, you are going to make the actual 4v4 or 5v5 competitive experience, right? Isn't that a way to rejigger the way that things work so that there's a little more continuity to what's going on instead of this like constant hard reset?
Well, dude, I think that would make total sense to me. And where do you draw the lines, right? Like,
sure,
for me, hard. I would definitely put, I'd put like Treyarch on, competitive, Infinity Ward on single player campaign, and I'd put like, I don't know,
Sledgehammer on BR.
This is the most fun.
BR.
This is the most cautious and fun game of Marry Fuck Kill that we've ever had.
Sledgehammer on campaign and IW on BR. That would be good.
Oh yeah. That'd
be good. That works.
Just give us Vonderhaar for competitive, and we'll figure out the rest. Yeah. Jay Purrier, David Vonderhaar, handle that, and then let somebody else worry about the casual stuff.
So those guys have done a lot for esports. Who Hector just called out, David Vonderhaar, Treyarch, and Jay Purrier. Those guys have been kind of the cream of the crop in terms of helping Call of Duty esports grow from the developer standpoint.
To move away from the gameplay, let's talk a little bit about how you guys created your brands, because I think this is really interesting, especially because you had to give up for both of you guys your old brand. Like, you're not using Envy Mike, in terms of the representation. You've created this new brand, Dallas Empire, which I love your logo, by the way. I think you guys did a really good job with
Thank
that.
you.
Thank you.
And then Hector.
Both of them are good. Both of them are great.
Hector,
I like Hector's.
I want to do, in a year when there's a little more water under the bridge, I would love to do a show with you where we really dig into what the fuck happened with Infinite and OpTic. I think we're a little too close to that one to touch right now and really like start uncovering the skeletons in the closet. But trust me, we'll get there. I am deeply interested in that. And I know a lot of what happened from talking to people who were on the inside. But you had to give up, obviously, the brand that you were instrumental in building in OpTic. It is now owned by Immortals instead. That was part of the whole Infinite sale to Immortals with the Houston Outlaws as part of Overwatch League. And so you were kind of a man wandering in the desert and ended up with NRG as now an executive with them and the Chicago Huntsmen. So we'll start with you. Were you part of the Huntsman brand exercises, and what were you trying to, if so, what were you trying to bring to this new project after what you had learned from OpTic?
Everything from top to bottom. I have like 7 different iterations of what the Huntsman logo would have looked like. I mean, you name it. From top to bottom, the way that the show was going to be ran, the way that the team, the brand, the colors, the players, like everything that has to do with Huntsman, I was able to do on my own by myself. Like my boy Andy, my business partner Andy, was super cool with the way that I do things. And you know, the beauty about Andy is that he's so passionate about esports that he just like knows, he understands the space, right? So when he said, it's like, all right, listen, this is we want to do this together, but I want you to do what you have done in the past. And I said, easy, right? It's easy to learn. So I did, and I mean like everything from geez, man, like there was never any other name. There was no name that I came up with, no different iterations. That it was always
why Huntsman?
Because we started as a sniper clan, and we were always on the hunt, and it was a model that we lived by, right? Where we always went the extra mile, where we were hunting for a better situation, whether it was a better lifestyle, whether it was a better home situation, whatever it was, better at the game, whatever. We're always on the hunt, moving towards a goal that we achievement hunters essentially. And it sort of paid homage to our roots, right? The sniper clan roots, where snipers are hunters at the end of the day. So I thought about it. I'm like, hunter. I was like, at first I wanted to do like a different sort of logo and branding, but I figured that the axis and that sort of primeval sort of bushcraft hunters,
I like it a lot. I think your logo is really good.
Thank you. And look, it's if you look at every logo that exists ever in the world, it's just a symbol. It means nothing until the people make it mean something. And that's what we've always prided ourselves on, that it is us that are the brand that we feed into this symbol that sort of brings the community together. And that's the whole point of it.
What did you learn from OpTic that you don't want to do again with Huntsman? Like, what's a mistake that you made that you've corrected or think you've done better this time around?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think
he's made no mistakes ever. He learned nothing.
No,
it was just perfect from the get-go.
I mean, we fucked up so many times on so many different things that without them, we wouldn't be where we're at. Like, they happened for a reason, and they made me think about things differently. They taught me everything. So what I would do different would fundamentally change the amount of success that I've had, the amount of success not only in business but in my personal friendships with everybody that I come across.
That's the proper way to live life, for sure.
Yeah. So what wouldn't I do? I did it all perfectly, man. In my heart, to the very, very last moment, I did I couldn't look. I'm not saying it perfectly in a sense of an egotistical standpoint where I don't fuck up. No, I mean, I took every single precaution that I had to take in order to make the decisions that I was making while building that brand. To the very last moment, and technicalities happen, and that's it. So I don't think I would change anything. I don't think that I made mistakes, sure, but that's part of what made me and my team that. So for me to say, that I made a mistake, I don't know. I just can't cop to that thing. I looked at this thing as everything, right? I took care of it forever. You know what I mean? Like there was nothing that I didn't think about when I was thinking about what was best for that thing. Nothing. To the very last breath.
Is it hard to see it then, this thing that you invested so much time into, be completely separate from you now? And competing against it, isn't that weird?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yep. So Hastro, what about you? How did you come up with Empire?
We've caused him too much pain.
Yeah. Honestly, I was born and raised here in Texas, so I was always one of those big Texas guys. Big fan of my home state where I grew up. Always wanted to come back when I moved away. And yeah, in Texas, it is going to sound really corny, but I was a Boy Scout. And
I was a Boy Scout. That's great.
Good. Yeah. Good. You learn some things in the Boy Scouts. But one of the things that we learned was the Texas state song, and the state song of Texas. It refers to Texas as empire wide and glorious. So we thought that it would be a cool name to kind of tie in what we think we built, like what Hector said. They were always on the hunt as the huntsman. I mean, we did have a Call of Duty empire, even though Hector came out on top of a lot of the tournaments over us, over the years. We still built a Call of Duty empire for many years. We were a dynasty. We had multiple kind of dynasty years, I think, in Call of Duty. Not as big as maybe OpTic had, mostly with their success in the regular season tournaments. But we still built an empire in Call of Duty, and we brought that empire to the Empire of Texas. So
yeah.
It kind of matched up with who we are as an organization and where we live and where we have our headquarters and who we represent as a community. So there's a big empire here in Texas that's wide and glorious and very prideful.
You had 2 years of building a Texan fan base with the Overwatch League before you got into CDL. What did you learn about being the Dallas representative that helped you kind of figure out how you were going to do the Call of Duty side?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of that first homestand for Overwatch League, and we sold out of tickets a month in advance. I mean, there was a whole month before. I mean, it's basically 4 weeks before our event. Nope, you couldn't even buy a ticket, and we were just ecstatic, until we opened the doors, and then you just didn't know what to expect, and then the crowd was just insane, man. I mean, the fans, we might have the best market in esports. It's still to be kind of determined. We would have found out a lot more about that this year. But Dallas is certainly one of the top 3 or 4 markets in the United States for esports right now. There's no doubt about that. And so
it's really interesting to see that too, because now we've had the esports awards there as well. And the city of Arlington is like all in on this shit. And I've been amazed with the Dallas newspaper picking up and having a beat writer on a lot of this content.
Yeah, but we did that, right? Like we fostered all those relationships, not Arlington, but we're the ones, that's what we're investing into, right? And maybe it's a good time for me to state this. Like everybody's different, all the major esports organizations are different now. I think we're actually truly pioneering our own organizations now in ways that are creating unique identities. Whereas maybe 5 years ago, we all looked very similar, now you're seeing some really unique identities being created in organizations, and ours as EnVy is really focused on creating Dallas as this massive esports, megaplex. And, we're spending the time and resources on that. We're investing our money into it. We're investing our time into it. We're hiring people. We're doing things that are building up Dallas as our one of our core focuses as an esports organization, Dallas, Fort Worth, and North Texas, and even parts around in other states. So we want people to be able to come to Dallas and experience esports in a live setting eventually again, and we want to be their preferred team. And so we're marketing that way. maybe Hector's approach might be different than ours in the sense that they're very content driven, social and content driven. And 100 Thieves, it seems to me, very social content driven, but also big time apparel driven, right? I mean, for us as EnVyu, I think what identifies us is we're very locally driven, and we're pushing a lot of things here in our home market that a lot of teams aren't in theirs.
What do you think it is about the Texas fans? Because I agree with you that the Dallas and Houston areas are absolutely enormous for esports, but that surprised me at first, because when I think about, sure, Texas is uniquely crazy about sports. The Dallas Cowboys are the most valuable sports team in the entire world. You see things like in Texas, these multi-thousand person stadiums for high school football. So you would think, oh, well, they're very into traditional sports or meat sports. They wouldn't necessarily, like, maybe because of the macho culture, they look down on esports. But in my experience, it's been exactly the opposite. It has been completely and openly welcomed into the sort of Texas sports pantheon. They're building stadiums. The mayors are into it. Everybody just treats it like a normal sport. And I would not have expected that, knowing stereotypes about Texas. So what is it about Texas that has created this environment? Because it's surprising to me, but it's really cool to see.
Really quickly before you answer, I think it's more of a cultural shift where video games isn't that, is obviously no longer the nerdy, scrawny kid playing or fat kid playing eating Cheetos. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I think it's more of a video game thing than just a Texas thing. But Texas does do it right, for sure.
I mean, I just think Texas is like much more progressive about acceptance of competitive video gaming than most other parts of America. But I wouldn't, if you had put a gun to my head 5 years ago, I wouldn't have said Texas was going to be on the start of that wave. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, I actually find it a little bit odd too, man, to be honest. I knew we were investing into a great market when we bought into it. And, of course, I'm going to come back home to my home state and buy that franchise. I think Hector and I were talking, I think at one point, like, I don't even remember what our conversations were like, but I had to tell, I think when it all went down, it was like, dude, we're moving to Dallas too. And we're buying the Overwatch team there, And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I don't know what he thought about it, but it was just, there was a time where we didn't even know where we were going because of localization, in the future. So
I always knew I was going to end up in Texas. I was born here, and I always knew. And then one day, I tweet out, I'm like, yo, tweet out that we're moving to Texas because we're moving next month or something. Mm-hmm. And Hastr immediately calls me. He's like, yo, we're moving there too. What are you doing? And I'm like, oh, man.
Yeah, it was an interesting time. But, I'm thankful that, we're able to build esports in this place. I mean, it's different. It's just, there are parts of it I just don't understand because you just won't be able to put your finger on it. But I mean, maybe if I had to take a guess, I mean, I think it's just, there's a massively fueled sports crowd here that's been that way for the past, 50 years. And, there are people who come into the families that love the professional mainstream sports like NBA, the Dallas Mavericks and the NBA, the Dallas Cowboys, the NFL, the Dallas Stars and NHL and the Texas Rangers and Major League Baseball. We have all of those sports, professional sports teams here in Dallas-Fort Worth. And there are a bunch of people that were raised in that environment, going to baseball games and basketball games and football games, but they never played those sports. They were really just into video games, growing up. And so now you're seeing that come about where they, their families kind of instilled them with this fandom, this nature of supporting their teams, this fanaticism for supporting local sports teams, and they prefer to do it with video games. And so we're fortunate to have that crowd on our side here in Dallas. I think it's only going to grow.
How has your experience been with the Chicago fan base so far, Hector? Because that's a market that we hadn't seen localized, at least in Overwatch League. And I think like the Midwest has been pretty underserved, especially in the Chicago area for esports history. Like, honestly, if you think about even going back to our earlier conversation about the MLG days, there was MLG in Dallas, obviously in Columbus and Ohio was where a lot of MLG events were held, North Carolina for Raleigh, Anaheim in California, but there weren't a lot of Chicago events historically in the history of esports.
Yeah, that's just government, right? That's the not government, but the unions, and making it super, super expensive for somebody to be able to run a business out of there. we sort of built this thing in Chicago. Both Nation and I are from Chicago. Everybody moved to Chicago. Both our Chicago houses were in the suburbs of Chicago. But if I told you where, you wouldn't know. So I say Chicago. God damn it. But at the end of the day, for us, it was the whole local market. Although it makes sense, for us is about continuing our relationship with the global community, right? If you look at our analytics, you'll see that the United States is number one, closely followed by, or North America, United States and Canada, closely followed by England. Then I believe is Australia, mate, and then after that it's just tapers off. But yeah, I think there was a heat map as to who the people that signed up to buy our tickets and where they came from. But it was all over the globe, and this goes to every esport. It's not just Huntsman that this is happening to. There's Cloud9 fans everywhere in the world. The same way that there's Envy fans everywhere in the world. But the Chicago market has treated us very, very well. We just had a fan meetup right before our homestand. It was during the NBA All-Star weekend. We had close to 3,000 people show up. Some of them waited in 0-degree weather, and I apologize for that. One day I'm going to make sure that you guys are in the warmth, or I'm going to personally be handing out hot cocoa. Okay, but we had people waiting in 0-degree weather for about 2 hours as we were trying to rush through everybody, and give people enough time to get to meet the boys and I. So far so good, and 7,000 people were about to show up to that homestand.
Yeah,
damn it,
man.
COVID.
That sucks so bad.
That's a flex.
You'll be back. You'll be back.
Yeah, I think you hopefully by next season everything will be returning to some level of normalcy. It obviously sporting events are hit super hard by this, and when we think about too, games like Call of Duty and Overwatch that were predicated on this huge amount of travel, having these live audiences every weekend. These are the games that are just completely wrecked by COVID, right? Because at least in other titles like League of Legends or Counter-Strike, where there were smaller audiences or no audiences, or the players are in the same location for a length of time, it becomes much easier just to transition to online play. But I know that this has been a nightmare. For COD, what were the biggest challenges for going online that you had to solve for with your teams and your players?
Connectivity, servers, and the like.
By far.
Are your players scattered at their normal homes right now? Are they at your facilities in Chicago and Dallas?
Right now, we all moved down here as a team. The majority of my team is still here, except for now Preston and Formal. Formal's still in California. Very soon, I'm going to drag his ass out here. But yeah, so far, obviously, we were very, very diligent about following the rules during this pandemic.
Sure.
But as soon as everything gets back to normal, having people in the same place develops the chemistry that you otherwise can't, no matter what anyone says. Like being together, not playing the game builds more chemistry than you can imagine, as you obviously know. So you can't imagine. I don't know why I said that. I think.
Yeah, I mean, all of our players were here in Dallas Fort Worth. We sent Illy back to Canada, so he's playing from Canada right now. But the rest of our players are here in Dallas Fort Worth, but they're just playing from home at the moment. But yeah, I mean, just having connectivity be as fair as it can be, for every team, that was important. So I think we got that figured out now, and we're able to really just go forward with the league. And to be honest, man, and we've had some incredible games online, actually some really intense, amazing matches. So hats off to the players. The players do deserve a lot of credit here, and sometimes they whine like little bitches, but at the end of the day, we have to thank all the players for dealing with it and putting their careers and their personalities on the line. It is something we should thank the players for. So every single player in the CDL, thank you, because without you guys being on board, it would be impossible.
Are the players disappointed that they don't get to travel and do the in-person events?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine being stuck in a room like this 12 hours a day, man. They can't wait to get out there. You know, they get out in the wild and they're like, oh shit, what is this?
Yeah, I mean, it sucks, man. Like, it sucks, dude. Like, there's nothing more that I would love for especially my two youngest players. Like, they're two rookie players that are just 18 years old. Like, they're missing out on so much experience right now. Like, just gaining that experience of playing at events. And I mean, it's sad, dude, that they're a whole year of their careers are going to go kind of missing in terms of having that live presence, so, and being able to engage with fans and letting people see them in a live setting and all
Yeah.
the moments, man, that we miss now.
I mean, think about the fans, right? Like they look forward to this thing so they can finally like scream as loud as they can and be in a community that's that accepts each other for what they are, right? Fans of an esport, and they play a massive part in this. Obviously, none of this exists with the fans, right? But more importantly, from a show's perspective, the loud cheering, like it's just, man, you miss that. You miss that. Like there's been so many moments. There's been so many moments. There's been so many moments since we, like Hastr just said, like the amount of close games that have happened. I can only imagine how insane those moments would have been if that would have happened live somewhere. It doesn't matter where. How it's just such a miss.
I just started cracking up laughing, man. I don't even know why this popped into my head, but I was thinking of like what even the negative moments, like the drama, and like the crazy like things that you don't want to talk about. Like those are things that we're missing too. Like really what popped in my head was that one time Neslo. Remember when Neslo? Do you ever see that video where he stood up after he like clutched out a map or something? He's like, I don't know. He says, I'm like, go home, you fucking fan, or something like that. And everybody thought he said that. All over YouTube and literally like getting talked about on like all the biggest podcasts on YouTube, like people were like, look at this guy, just those little moments. Like
You're still talking about it today, so that's a bit of a massive moment.
See,
know, right?
this is the kind of stuff that's great, though.
There's been another choo-choo train moment this year,
Oh, yeah.
I think those moments are incredibly important, and like I love players who put themselves out there and will do that. And you know what? I wish more players would do that, because oftentimes if you get fined, if it's popular, the team owner will usually eat that fine for you. I mean, a lot of those fines, like those would just get paid by the team's guys because they realize that it adds character to their own team environment, and they're not going to punish a player for the advertising that it gets, as long as it's reasonable. That one's obviously very reasonable.
Well, I was going to say, like the Call of Duty, the league itself is really, really good at understanding the culture within. So to put sort of brakes on those sort of outbursts or those personality driven moments, like they'll never do that the same way that we would never do that. It's a different culture for different sport, right? Like if you go to a hockey game, it's different than if you went to a volleyball game. You know what I mean? So that they understand that, and they'll always be, supportive in that way. As long as you don't take it above and beyond what you said.
You just said volleyball, and then I just pictured Neslo like spiking somebody out. Like, it's just, you don't see that in volleyball. But COD, it's not quite UFC. Like we're not throwing chairs at tour buses and stuff. Like whatever, happens in UFC. But
the toughest part about that is like convincing the players not to tweet something or not to say something or not to do that, because when you get to a certain level and you have a certain following, for example, Scrumpy, right? Like him wanting to go back at people, that's just like, I tell him, it's like, there's no point. You punch harder because you have a bigger platform to punch with, right? Like let whoever needs to talk, right? And it goes the same way for every esport, right? It goes the same way where some things are acceptable, but even if they're acceptable, it's better to just not give in to the drama, in my opinion. Not too much into it.
I'm glad that CDL was willing to really listen to you guys about the changes to the format and kind of the soul of Call of Duty, because I really do feel that it's carried over very nicely. And if anything, to me, from watching CWL last year to CDL this year, it's the feeling hasn't changed. It's that it's a more polished product. If anything, they leaned into it more. Like I really like the graphics, all the like the black and white that they were using in terms of the broadcast, and the feel of it still remained really, really authentic to the game. to me. And that was refreshing to see, because I think that a lot of esports, when they make these transitions, lose something that made them special. And I think that CDL has been the most successful sort of franchising in terms of tone of the broadcast that I've seen from any game so far. So I think you guys were pretty critical to that.
Yeah, we can get better too, man. I mean, I think it's just gonna get better. Even like the talent, the broadcast talent can be better. Like they have, I'm not trying to be too critical. I mean, I was a caster in Call of Duty too, and there were certainly some tournaments and like early on in my career, when I was casting, I sucked, but I got better over time, and I got really good eventually, I think. And some of the broadcast talent will get better, and the production will get better, and the look and the feel will get better. I mean, man, I'm just excited for it. Like I actually am more excited for COD than I ever have been. Straight up.
Me too.
Especially with my boys over at Treyarch about to drop that dub of a game here soon. I think it's gonna be a great game. What we got coming next?
I just hope that they don't change Warzone. I love that game.
Yeah,
I love everything about it.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm curious too how that's going to play out. Warzone's great.
All right, guys. Well, we'll wrap it up here. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you coming on to talk about CDL, especially because a lot of these issues don't ever get, in the same way that the fighting game community is sort of off in its own little world, a lot of these issues never really get brought up to other people in esports. And many people don't even really think about CDL who aren't already invested in the COD scene. So I did want to have you guys who have been in here for so long in this scene have a chance to get these ideas out there. And especially because a lot of people don't know the stories about the creation of CDL and how much of an effect you had in it. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking me, man. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. We'll see you hopefully next week for another episode of Essential Esports.